I've always went to Charlotte. I've been a Speedway Club member there for years. I grew up going to races there since I was a little boy. Mm-hmm. My parents took me there to the infield camping during every big race there. I grew up. In fact, I even parked cars across the street from the track when I was a teenager in the parking lot where the dirt track sits now. I used to park campers and cars over there. Yeah, I knew the old man that owned the field over there. Old man Patterson owned the field that's now where the dirt track sits. And of course, the Speedway owns it all now. Yeah, it's Terry Labonte's. He won the 1988 Winston All-Star race with it. And I actually traded a building edition with Norman Negree, Ed Negree's son, who raced Winston Cup for a long time. And Norman has been working on race cars, still does. He was the shop foreman over at Stewart Haas. But Norman he subcontracted hanging sheet metal on race cars. He had a shop there in Kannapolis, and I built an addition to his shop. And he asked me, he said, I need another bay added on it. He said, how about I trade you this race car? You bring me a motor, and you build me a building addition on the building. I'll put you on pole for your first car race. I said, really? So back then I was racing go-karts. And so anyway, I had a good friend of mine, Bob Burham, who was probably one of the top restrictor plate engine builders and probably responsible for Dale Jr. and Michael Walker for getting so many restrictor plate wins at Dale Earnhardt Incorporated back in the day when Dale Jr. and Michael dominated at Daytona and Talladega. Oh. Bob was the reason for that. And Bob had a engine shop at his home, and I've known Bob for years since the Buddy Baker days. He worked for Buddy Baker. But anyway, I went to Bob and paid him he built me a nice motor. He said he wanted to see me do good, so he did his extra special work on it. And we put it in the car, and we rented the track for a session with Mark Cox and one other driver. We had a private session there and rented the track. I probably had 600 miles on the track before I ran my first race lap there. But my very first car race was in Charlotte Motor Speedway. And we went and qualified on pole for my very first race. That was my very first car race. And anyway, during that time, David Gaines got killed. He was the first driver. I was actually on track when that happened. I just passed them, and the girl from Australia or something came off the wall and hit his car. He was sitting dead in the track, and I already went by him. The guy came around and hit him wide open, and it led to his death or whatever. But Norman got on the radio and told me I was rolling down the turn one when this all went down. He told me to pull up on the back straightaway and stop. And that's what I did. I pulled over and stopped. He said, the pace car's going to be coming around. He said, there's been a bad wreck here on the front stretch. He said, when the pace car comes around, I want you to turn around and come into pits backwards. And so I waited the pace car come by, and I went and turned around and came in down pit road backwards that day because there was so much junk all the way down the pit road and down the front straightaway from that wreck. I actually sat for my very first car race of my whole life, I sat on pole at Charlotte, and that's when they had 80 cars and half the field was turned away. They actually had qualifying races that they split the field into two, and they had qualifying races, which I started in that, and ended up finishing fifth because I wasn't used to the right front tire smoking, and the smoke was coming in the car, and it kind of freaked me out because I never had that condition in go-karts because I was pushing the right front tire really hard, and it was letting smoke come in the car. And well, Norman said I messed up and didn't caulk all the stuff in the firewall and everything like that wouldn't let that smoke come in the car. So anyway, I backed off and finished fifth in the race, and ended up starting fifth on the fifth row for the main race. Yeah, well, that race there, running around fifth with Kirk Shelmerdine and Ron Burchett, and on a restart, got started good. Got on the outside of Kirk Shelmerdine, and he put me in the wall going down to one. But anyway, I slid down in the bottom, and it was right at the end of the race, like 3 or 4 laps to go. I kept going, and I had the front bumper hanging off the car, dragging it around the track, and finally, just coming out 1 lap to go, I think Dennis Setzer and whoever, Robbie Fagger, were leading the race, and they come around, and I just slid down the bottom and let them go. But anyway, I finished like 18th or whatever that day. But I was fighting for third with Shelmerdine when that happened. And unfortunately, there's no video of that race. I think it was one that was on an All-Star day. That particular race there was the very first race we went to the hard Daytona tires. The races before that were on soft tires, and boy, those cars were a dream to drive then. I mean, you could handle them a whole lot better. My best finish I ever had was at Richmond in that same car that same year. The Richmond race, I finished third up there behind Dennis Setzer, and I think whoever drove which I thought was very good because that was like my second or third car race ever. So getting used to having a body around you was the hardest thing, in the aerodynamics of it. Driving the car by yourself I thought was easy. Driving it fast by myself was easy, but when you got around other cars and the aerodynamics of other cars coming up with them, you really got moved around, especially if somebody got up behind you back in. It would take the air off the spoiler, and you would be a lot looser going into corners and stuff. And you had to drive different. Somebody's on the inside of you or the outside of you. It just that was a whole new learning curve for me from racing go-karts, which I was one of the top go-kart racers in the country at one time, having multiple national championships. So, and moving up from that to straight into race cars. There was another race after that. It hit the 12 car and got it. Actually, sort of like the Russell Phillips wreck in turn 4. A car spun out in front of me, and I tried to beat him around the top. And his car came up sliding backwards at an angle, and I caught his car. And actually, somebody's got a picture somewhere of my car. You can see the bottom of it, and the roof is in the wall. In turn 4. Is almost identical to what Russell Phillips did. It just didn't quite get up in the fence or whatever. I got into the concrete wall with in fact, the little fin that's across the top of the hood was bent down from being in the wall. The roof of it was, but then it came back down its wheels and ended up in the grass off of turn 4. And that car basically was junk. It bent the frame on it so bad we jumped it, and it got sold to some guys who cut it up and used it for a short track car. Then I built a brand new car. I had a Hutcherson Pagan chassis. We built a whole brand new car. And then that kid in fact, I think the kid got hurt. God, I can't remember his name. Drawing a blank now, but he ran number 93. It's in one of the races there. He gets hit at the start finish line and gets turned and runs in the pit wall head on. Yeah, he was a kid too. He was really young. His dad was on an electrical company. I sold the car to them, and they drove the car, and I think he jumped the car, and after that was it. It hit the inside pit wall really hard. It was a hard hit. This kid came on in around 94. You got the race. It's on one of the tapes. As I sat there and watched it the other day, and I'm drawing a blank now. The kid's name that bought it. Anyway, Garland. Well, it is Garland Hopgood, isn't it? Because actually the wreck that I was in, I actually suffered a mild concussion. I went to the hospital and got scanned. Dr. Petty wanted me to go get an MRI done, which they did, and I had a mild concussion, was told not to. In fact, if I stood up very long, I would get dizzy. That lasted for 2 or 3 weeks after that race. So, but then we built a brand new car, and I just wasn't the same after that wreck. I don't know if it affected me. Because once you get afraid to hit that wall, you drive totally different lifting off that accelerator, or especially you start worrying about how much things cost if you do wreck the thing too. That makes a difference when your wallet gets hooked to the accelerator too. Yeah, you don't quite drive as fast if you have fear. And I think that's what happened to me. I was that wall that lick. It was a hard lick. I hit really hard on the wall that day. And I think if you notice a lot of drivers' career after they have a wreck like that, they're not the same after that. They're not near as aggressive. I don't know. What cars will they use? Old Xfinity cars, because they're phasing out those cars going to the new. Because these cars are all brand new. What they're running now, a new, whole totally different car. Yeah. With replacement with what screw-on bodies or whatever now. Yeah, I don't know if I think NASCAR wants to keep ARCA, the training division, coming up because of the liability part of it. And plus the attention, if a driver gets killed in ARCA, they don't get near as much attention if a driver's killed in one of their divisions. Honestly, I think that's why they keep ARCA around, for that reason. To, hey, before you get in a cup ride, you're going to have to go make your way through a lesser division. And most of them, you see they go through ARCA. So really, ARCA's kind of your feeder division now, I think, and it was back then. I don't know. I think Humpy and them wanted some entertainment for their qualifying nights and pre-race for the All-Star race and the 600. So I think that's the whole reason they had all them cars left over when they were switching from the old Monte Carlo style bodies and went to the Luminas or whatever back in the day too.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, running a limited horsepower motor like at a track at Charlotte where you're running wide open all the way around puts them in a situation like even the best of the Cup drivers at Daytona and Talladega can't run very long without having a big wreck. I mean, because you're so close in power, you can't get, there's no having to let up in the corners to drive the car, and you're just holding it wide open in a pack. And I think that's a lot of the Sportsman division problem was that they were, everybody was so close in speed that, we were all close together, and something happens, there's not enough time to react to you're making a split-second decision and right or wrong. And really, to get faster, you had to loosen the car up. The looser you made the car, the faster you went. Of course, the looser the car was, the easier it was for it to get out of hand, out of control, too. Mm. So, I mean, that was a lot of there's a catch-22 on that. So, that's what I said. When other cars get around you, too, they get behind you on that spoiler, and the back end loosens up even more. You got to run some laps the tires that don't wear down, and it gets looser and looser the more you run. So, that's just the like I said, you're taking guys who don't have any super speedway experience of drafting and things like that off of short tracks and go-karts or whatever, be it whatever form of racing there is. I mean, the only way to get experience at drafting is get out there in that and draft. So, I mean, we were a slower Daytona Talladega at Charlotte, actually, we had limited horsepower motors that kept us all close together.